So I just want to start by giving you all a round of applause for coming. Yay! Thank you. And I'm excited people came back after last week. Okay, so today we're going to get into the next session 2 of our webinar. And I just want to take a quick minute to introduce myself. I'm Amanda Lillimo. I'm the Consumer Marketing Manager at Jostens and work on all things yearbook.
And I'm Kristen Johnson. I'm the Social Media Manager here at Jostens. All right, so to recap, last week we discussed developing a social strategy, which included content calendars and our 6 buckets of content, aka what I called the Big 6. So over the next 2 weeks, we'll be specifically discussing influencer marketing, with this week being more about the what is influencer marketing, and then next week will be about the how, so how we actually execute a plan. And then our last session will put all these concepts together, and then we'll discuss monthly social execution.
Here are the 5 things we're going to be covering with influencer marketing. Why it matters, what exactly is influence, the different types of influencers, building a strategy, and then at the end of the presentation and a little bit throughout, we'll be showing lots of really great examples. Today is really about learning about what it is, and next week is about how you can apply it in the yearbook classroom and with the yearbook brand. You may not come away with as many examples of application this week. I just want to let you know that ahead of time, but what you will come away with is a sound understanding of everything influencer marketing, which will be really helpful when you start to think about how to put it into the yearbook classroom. I was excited about this topic, and the first thing I thought about was the history of influencer marketing. And I immediately said to Kristen, I'm sure that Cleopatra in ancient Egypt used some form of influencer marketing. So I started digging in, and actually I couldn't find a ton of history from the ancient times. Turns out they didn't have fax machines and printers back then, so there's not a ton of documentation. But what I did find, as far back as we can tell, ancient Greece, the Victorian era, that there have been influencers. The Olympians in Greece, those athletes, much like today, had celebrity endorsements and all sorts of sponsorships. This woman on the screen is Queen Victoria, and she was one of the first people to really make white wedding dress fashionable. And sometimes royalty back in the day would wear their hairstyle in certain ways or do certain things with feathers in their hair, and then all the markets would sell out of those feathers, or that hairstyle would be in fashion. And so as long as there's been communities and groups of people, there has been influencer marketing in one way, shape, or form. A couple other examples. In 1760, that was one of the first times that we started really documenting influencer marketing. And this gentleman here, Mr. Wedgwood, had a pottery and dinnerware line that the royalty used, and he used that as an endorsement for his product. As we moved forward over time, there became character endorsements. So Tony the Tiger was a big one that was really appealing to many people. It tugged at their heartstrings and they had an emotional connection. And then as time went on and celebrities became more and more prominent in our culture today, brands like Pepsi started marketing using celebrity endorsements that you saw through the 80s, 90s, and still today. Currently, the spokesperson for Pepsi is Beyonce. So that's just another example.
All right, so just like last week, it's important to understand why influencer marketing is important and why it's worth our time. The digital marketing landscape is ever-changing. Consumers don't want to be served ads in the traditional online manner. In fact, 76% currently use ad blocker technology. They predict by 2020, ad blocking will devour $12 billion in online revenue, which is crazy. So the value of influencer marketing can also be seen in the numbers. So trust is 58% higher for experts and peers when forming opinions about brands. 90% of internet users consider consumer recommendations to be more credible than any other forms of advertising. 67% of shoppers spend more online after recommendations from an online community of friends. And 65% of consumers need to be exposed to something 3 to 5 times before they believe it's true. And moreover, the reliance is not restricted to recommendations from people that consumers personally know. Actually, 92% of the consumer population would rather take the word of a complete stranger over any paid marketing message from a brand. And then lastly, 1/3 of millennium users aged 13 to 24 report following influencers, and this rate is 47% higher than their older counterparts.
I really like that stat. I'm going to say it again. 1/3 of millennial age users, 13 to 24-year-old, report following influencers, which is 47% higher than their older counterparts. That means that kids have kidfluence. Many of you who are on this webinar right now are probably students in a high school, and you might not consider yourself kids, but for the sake of the next couple of slides, we're talking about people that are aged 13 to 24-year-old. And kidfluence is a big thing. In the 70s and 80s, a lot of marketers called it the pester power, when kids were able to annoy their parents into getting them something. But pester power has really evolved in the last decade into more of an informed influence. Kids, teens are researching products, oftentimes are much more tech savvy than their parents, and are able to really let their family know what may or may not be a good purchase. It's really important when we think about communicating with our audience that we remember how important it is to make sure that the teens have all the accurate information. And this is really going to be reflected as we talk about the yearbook brand and what you're saying to teens and parents in your school community. I'm just going to read this line here. Brands need to acknowledge the growing circle of influence kids, family members, and friends have on parents' decision making, and how this web of influence transforms through the parenting journey. One way that this is really manifesting, this tool, it's called Amazon Teen. And Amazon saw that, yes, kids do have this influence, and we want to make sure that we're putting power in their hands. And so one of the things that they did was create this login where you could be affiliated with your parents' account. And there's a button on the screen where if you find a pair of sneakers you want, you can click tell your parents about this. And then pops up a screen where you can type them a note. You could say, Mom, I really need new shoes. Or you could do, mom shaming, like, Mom, I haven't had new shoes in 2 years. I'm the only one. And then you can send them a message and they can approve your purchase. And there's other ways to use it. But again, this is just really showing that people are understanding how influential kids really are. One of the things that we did this year that ties back to this kidfluence thing is this flyer. Some of you have maybe seen it, but it's a really fun technology. And depending on what sort of screen you're on right now, you could maybe even scan this QR code from the screen. But what's fun about it is when you scan it, you can hang these posters in the school so kids see them. They scan the poster and it opens up a text message on their phone. And the text message says, yearbooks are almost sold out. Will you please order me one? And it includes a link to where to purchase the yearbook. And so the idea here is to send it to your mom or whoever is the person that might purchase you a yearbook. And we've had tons of success. Kids are always influencing their parents. And I want to add to that, it's not just an online strategy. There can be influencers offline all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's what I like about what we're talking about here with influencer marketing in yearbook. We're definitely going to be talking a lot about the digital presence, but that transfers over. For instance, this is a flyer you hang in your school. It's an offline sort of tactic, but then becomes online once you send the text message. Yeah. So, and this flyer, if you're interested in it, is available for you to download in Yearbook Avenue, and you can use it in your school right now.
So all in all, the digital landscape is changing, and so we have to change with it. So this quote sums it up perfectly. A brand is no longer what we tell the consumer it is what consumers tell each other it is. So what's the solution, you ask? Well, we need to reach people with content they want from the people they trust, aka influencer marketing. So we've all heard the term influencer marketing, but do we really understand what influence means? So contrary to popular belief, following does not equal influence. Kim Kardashian actually has a very low conversion rate from her social media posts. The key is to select people with followings that associate with the product being marketed. This will enable the campaign to be more effective. So if following doesn't equal influence, what is influence? To have influence means the capacity to directly impact or change the opinions and behaviors of others. So the ability to do this comes down to 3 factors. So the first is reach, which is the ability to deliver content to a targeted audience. The second is relevance, which is the strength of connection an individual has to a particular brand or topic. And then the third is resonance, so the ability to drive a desired behavior from an audience. So for yearbook, these individuals are the students and parents in your school, and the good news is you don't have to try very hard because the yearbook brand is all about your community. Now that we understand the why and have defined influence, we need to talk about the different types of influencers. So there are three main types. There's the mega, the macro, and the micro. So let's dive into the first one, mega influencers. So these are actors, artists, athletes, and social media stars who have 1 million or more followers. And they drive 2 to 5% engagement per post. So they have the highest reach on the influencer spectrum, so they tend to actually be brands in their own right. But they have the lowest overall resonance when it comes to driving actions. So examples of these include actress Selena Gomez, gymnast Simone Biles, and model Gigi Hadid. The next group is macro influencers. So these are executives, bloggers, and journalists who have between 10,000 followers and 1 million followers. And so they drive a little bit more in engagement rate, so they're 5% to 25% per post. And they have the highest topical relevance on the spectrum with category-specific influence like fashion and food. And some examples include the dancer Eva Igo, the food blogger Food with Michael, and then the lifestyle expert and blogger Living with Landon. And then the last group, and the one you should be focused on when it comes to promoting yearbooks, is the micro-influencer. So these are everyday consumers or employees who have between 500 and 10,000 followers, and they drive a whopping 25 to 50% engagement per post, which is huge. So they have the highest brand relevance and resonance on the spectrum of influencers, with influence driven by their personal experience with the brand and their strength of relationship with their networks or their followers.
Okay, cool. So since Kristen and I had been working on this presentation, I've been really paying close attention on my own social networks. And I saw a post this morning for a local garden center, and there was an influencer posting about it. So I clicked on her profile, and it was super interesting because she's from Minnesota, but she only has 700 followers, but she was promoting this brand, and I'm like, you're a micro influencer, I know. and I was super curious about, what their agreement was. And I think it'll be interesting after you go through this presentation today for everybody on today, as you're scrolling through your social media accounts, to sort of look and see, who is sort of sticking out as an influencer that you might not have thought of before.
Yeah.
So now that you understand that there are three types of different influencers, let's talk about strategy. There are 4 main components of developing an influencer marketing strategy, and Kristen's going to deep dive into each of them. But you can see on the screen, first you need to define your goals, talk about the type of campaign, finding the right influencers, and then qualifying your influencers.
So the first step in developing an influencer marketing strategy is obviously defining your goals. So you don't need to include all of these goals that I'll be going through, but it's important to have a clear picture of what you're trying to accomplish with your particular campaign. So the first one is brand awareness. So basically that's getting more people to know or recognize your yearbook brand. The second is audience building, which is getting more students and parents in your community to follow or subscribe to your yearbook social accounts. The third is take action, which is getting people to execute on your call to action, which could be submitting photos and content for your yearbook. The fourth is sales.
Okay, wait, I have a sound effect. Okay.
Which is pretty self-explanatory, getting more people to purchase your yearbook. The next one is engagement, which is getting more shares, comments, and likes on your content. And then the last is customer loyalty, which is getting more people to stay interested and connected with your brand.
Next week, we'll help you sort through which one of these you want to tackle first, or which couple of these might make the most sense for your strategy.
Yeah. So just like goals, there are a few different types of influencer marketing campaigns. So again, I'm going to go through all of them today because we're just teaching you about influencer marketing in general, but not all of them may apply. So the first is sponsored content. So this is paying for your brand to be featured on an influencer's blog or social channel. So in this example, Coach is paying Selena Gomez to post about their product, as noted by the paid partnership tag at the top of her post. And then social media mentions is the second one, which is developing a relationship with a personality where they mention your brand, they share your content, or they post about you. So in this second example, a fashion blogger is mentioning the clothing brand Very Jane in her social post. The third is influencer takeover. So this is allowing an influencer to take control of your social media accounts for a set amount of time. So in this Ari example, the gymnast Allie Raisman took over the Instagram page when her collection with the brand launched. So there were multiple Instagram tile posts, an Instagram story, and then there was an Instagram TV video. So an example of this for yearbook could be a millennial-aged teacher or principal taking over your accounts. The next type of campaign is discount codes. So this is basically giving an influencer a unique discount code for your product or service that they can promote and offer to their audience. So in this example, Pura Vida rep Amanda is offering a 20% off discount code to her followers. And then the last campaign type is brand ambassador. So this is when you form relationships with loyal brand fans where they mention or promote your brand products and services in exchange for exclusive offers, free products, or being featured by your brand. This one we'll take a look at more closely next week as it's a great option for yearbook influencer marketing. So in this example, social media influencer Becca Kufrin promoted Defy Eyewear in multiple of her Instagram tiles. So she's doing multiple Instagram posts, kind of spread out within her Instagram tile feed.
And as you're thinking about what you're going to be doing with your yearbook team, you could think about a combination of offline and online. But that idea of having a principal or someone take over your account, I think is a really fun idea.
So the most important step of developing an influencer strategy is finding the right influencers. So when it comes to your yearbook brand, start thinking about people in your school that have a strong social presence, have a high engagement rate, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and that are relatable to the audience you're targeting. So once you think you have found the right influencers, it's more important to qualify them. So we'll go through that a little bit here. So the first qualifier is audience. So it's better to work with an influencer who has a smaller audience that closely matches your ideal market than it is to work with an influencer who has a very large audience that doesn't include your ideal customers. So looking back at the Kim Kardashian example, which she's shown on the left here on this slide, she has people following her from all over the world, and many of them don't have much in common. Whereas on the other hand, Hannah, who's on the right, could be a student in your school who has an audience from your community. Then next is authority. So while quality is better than quantity when it comes to an influencer's audience, you also want to make sure your influencer has a reach wide enough to help you accomplish your goals. So look at the metrics of the influencer you're interested in to gauge the level of their reach.
That's me.
Mm-hmm. We'll get into that. So target influencers who have an engaged audience who frequently like and comment on their posts. So a great metric, like I mentioned, to use is engagement rate, which is the total number of likes and comments one gets on a particular post divided by the number of followers they have, and then times that by 100 to get your percentage point. So you're going to want to remember this equation as it'll come up a little bit later. So let's look at a few examples. So Amanda, my wonderful co-presenter, recently posted a photo that had 22 likes. And since we know her following is 306, we can figure out the engagement rate is 7.2%. So while I personally love her content, her direct messages might not be filling up with brands reaching out to collaborate.
Maybe they should make a new category for me, the teeny tiny influencer.
And then on the other hand, Hannah on the right, who, like on the previous slide, could be a student in your community, recently got 304 likes and comments on a post, and she has a following of 1,791. So we can say her engagement rate was 17%. So we might consider reaching out to her. And one final thing to note on this is that grabbing the engagement rate of one post isn't statistically significant, so make sure you grab metrics from multiple photos if you're interested in reaching out to a particular influencer.
All right. Next time we're going to evaluate your engagement rate. I'm sure it's much better than mine. Okay, so let's talk about content and messaging. In your influencer marketing strategy, you should strive to only partner with influencers who align with your brand. For instance, when you're looking at who might be a good choice at your school, you might find people like this yearbook staffer. So likely this person will align with your yearbook brand and goals. What's awesome about a person like this is that they're already embedded in the culture of your yearbook brand. So their tie is believable and authentic, and it feels really relevant to the school community audience. So if they meet the other metrics requirements, some people on your yearbook staff would be great influencers. You might have a guy in your school community who is the very best skateboarder and has lots of people following his accounts to watch videos of him skating. While his posts are likely super rad and he really is the best guy ever, you might notice that his videos from the skate park have maybe lots of curse words in it. Not from him, but like people in the background, or maybe somebody in the background is doing something they shouldn't be doing. So that likely doesn't align with your yearbook brand and may not be the best choice for someone to pick to be on your team. Let's see. Maybe you hear about this music lover who is on point with the indie music scene. Just like you did with the yearbook staffer and best skater, you need to do your due diligence in researching the other content that this influencer shares to make sure it aligns with your brand. Spend lots of time reviewing their multiple posts, status updates, and website content. You want to make sure it's relevant to your brand and that it's high quality and something you would be proud to be associated with. It has to represent the yearbook brand's beliefs and doesn't deviate too far from your core values.
All right, so now that we've given you all of the information, let's look at a few successful influencer marketing campaigns.
My favorite part are the examples.
Yes. All right, so the first example was centered around a particular campaign. So they had their brand ambassadors, or as they like to call them, Are We Real Role Models? And they had them post messages about Mother's Day on their social accounts. So what I liked about this was that they used a variety of their brand influence or brand ambassadors. One is young and single, another was a young mother, and the last was a dog mom who also actually happened to be an employee. So that could be your yearbook staffer. And finally, the brand hosted an event about this Mother's Day campaign with some of their top brand ambassadors, and so they crafted an Instagram TV video surrounding that campaign. The next example is from FabFitFun. So in this example, you can see that FabFitFun uses a variety of influencer types. So the one on the left, Savannah Chrisley, is a mega influencer. Jade, who's on the right, is a macro influencer, and then the one in the middle, A Glass of Gold Water is her Instagram name. She is actually a micro influencer. And then as you can see though, all of these posts include discount codes. So FabFitFun definitely does a lot of discount code campaigns.
It's interesting though to see that they are tapping into the different levels of influencer.
Yes. All right, and then the last example comes from Movement Watches. So each week they feature one of their brand ambassadors who they feel is living the MVMT lifestyle. So the brand ambassadors' social accounts get tagged in their Instagram story, and a full profile is actually created on their website for consumers to go and shop that brand ambassador's favorite looks. So definitely go check out their Instagram stories if you want to kind of see the full experience.
Okay, let's all just take a collective deep breath. I don't think I have a deep breath sound on my noise machine, but if I did, I would play it. So we covered a lot really fast, and mostly Kristen covered a lot really fast with the influencer marketing, but we really wanted to make sure that everybody had a good base for what we're about to talk about next week, which is how do we translate this all to yearbook. And so what I'd like to do is challenge you to complete an assignment that you can do today, tomorrow, over the next couple of days that will help you sort of start thinking about influencer marketing for our next session. So the assignment is, I want you to complete this influencer worksheet. Here you can see on the screen is the calculation that Kristen showed earlier, how to calculate engagement rate. So you take the number of likes and add it to the number of comments, and then you divide it by the number of followers and multiply by 100. Say that 10 times fast. And so what I'd like you to do is first calculate your own engagement rate, just to kind of get a baseline, see what's happening on your own account. And like Kristen said, you have to do it on multiple whole post because some are going to be more well liked than others. And so you kind of get an average. So that's one thing. But then the next thing to complete this worksheet is as you're perusing through your Instagram channel, find an influencer that you really like and that you feel like maybe influences you, or one that you're always looking forward to their content, and put their name here. I'm actually going to show you. I completed this worksheet on Instagram last night because I'm sort of an old lady. I like this lady, this White Pepper Vintage account where this woman goes to yard sales and gets vintage things. I know, it's really exciting. But she's my favorite account and I always look for her content. So I tagged her in it, and then I went to her account and I calculated her engagement rate, and I put it there, and then I figured out where she fell. She has 17,000 followers, so she fell right in the middle. She's a macro influencer. And then I posted this on my personal channel, and then if I were you, I would have tagged at Jostens Yearbook. And so then we can see your content, and we'll be looking for these posts throughout the end of the week, and then we'll just randomly select one to win a cool surprise prize. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but we'll reach out to you and DM you with a surprise. If you go to our channel on Instagram, there is a little button here that says worksheet, and if you click on that, you can see that it says get ready to screenshot, and if you click it, then you can screenshot the worksheet and save it to your roll, and then actually the next page has the instructions and includes the equation. So you'll be able to see all of that on our Instagram channel. So think about all the things we talked about today, do the influencer assignment, and get ready for next week and how we can translate this into your yearbook classroom. As always, if you have questions or comments, you can email us. Hello, where am I at? You can email us at social@jostens.com. I know it's yearbook distribution season. I know it's the end of the year, so tag us at Jostens Yearbook, or use the hashtag yearbooklove with some of your posts. And we thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next week. And sound effect. Thank you, everybody.
We'll see you next week. Thanks.